Welcome back to the Thrive360 Podcast. My name is Mitch McKinney. I'm the founder of Thrive360 Ministries, a ministry that is dedicated to helping people lead healthy and finish well. Grateful to have my friend back for the second episode of our podcast, Mark Montemayor. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Excited about this.
At Thrive360, one of the ways that we serve leaders across the country is we host retreats for them. And Monty, you help facilitate those, which is a real blessing to the leaders, but also a blessing to me that we get to do that together. Real quick, how would you describe a typical retreat? Retreat?
First, I do love that we get to do this together. We've been through a lot. Our family histories go back a long time, and to be in this space doing this thing together is pretty amazing. The retreats, though, so much of the time, leaders, they're so busy. They're so caught up. They're always on to the next thing. And they need, one of the excuses for not thinking about or doing this work and taking care of themselves and figuring out how they need to grow is they don't have time.
Right.
And so the retreat, it in essence forces them to create some time. But the magic isn't just the time. The magic is we got to create some space within that time.
Yeah.
If we're going to stay healthy and grow and finish well, then there's two things. We need to be rested and refreshed. That's part of the equation.
Yep.
The other part is we need to do the restorative work. We need to be on this journey of self-discovery to figure out what God's doing and how we need to be responding. And we need time and space to do that. So that's what the retreats are all about.
Yeah. And the focus isn't on professional development.
No.
We can certainly have those conversations.
Sure.
But the focus is personal.
Absolutely.
It's you. How are you doing? And so...
Well, here's the thing. Everybody wants a healthy culture in their leadership context. That's all the rage these days.
Right.
It's all the culture. Well, culture, it's not what we say, it's what we do. And when you've got unhealthy people, you can't have a healthy culture.
Yeah.
You need healthy people in order to have a healthy culture. So it starts with doing the work of rest, restoration, and growth. That's what's going to create healthy people. And then you have a chance at a healthy culture.
I love how you say it. You say you can't build healthy culture on the backs of broken people.
100%.
And so that's the work that we're doing at the retreats.
Amen.
So we started this conversation last episode about kind of the problem and where we're at. And we, at the end there, we started talking about, well, what can we do and why, how we got here, but also what we can do. And so I want to double click on something that you brought up, which was drift.
Yeah.
Which is something that we all do, not just in our leadership, but in our health and in our lives. Can you help us? Because one of the tools that we use to kind of identify drift and fight drift is a tool we call True North.
Yeah.
Can you kind of give us a quick, big picture overview of when we say True North, what we're talking about?
Sure, because drift is really, it's a matter of getting off course.
Right.
And sometimes we get off course because we drift. Sometimes we get off course because we're just not navigating well. Right. Both of them are a problem. And so I stumbled across this factoid that I did not know growing up, going to school, college. Nowhere along the line did I learn that there was more than one North Pole. And it blew my mind. It's like, okay, and this isn't just like the North Pole where Santa lives.
Right.
And then the real North Pole.
Right.
This is like the difference between the geographic North Pole, which is what we all think of.
Right.
And then the magnetic North Pole, which is what our compass points to. And I had no idea my compass has been lying to me all these years. And it doesn't make a difference when I'm just driving down the street, right?
Right.
I'll figure out which way to turn on the highway with my compass. But if I follow it all the way to the North Pole, I miss by over 300 miles.
So that's the difference, the distance between the magnetic
today
and the geographic.
But that joker's still moving. And so the real North Pole stays where it is, but we don't need to get deep into the science on this because I didn't go too far.
Right,
a little bit,
right.
Enough to know why it moves.
Right.
But the fact that it moves is still crazy to me. It's moving like over 30 miles a year. And so when we think about it, like the big picture takeaway for me is little differences over a long time make a huge difference.
Yeah,
make a big difference. And so we've got to pay attention to the little things because they add up over time and then become a big thing.
Yep. So that's true with navigation.
Yes.
So what's the application there? This little variations over time make a big difference. What's the application to leadership and to just our health overall?
Well, for me, I think about life. Life is a journey. Like we come into this world and we leave this world and everything in between. It's essentially a journey. And so I think a lot of times, especially as a believer, I think about my journey has a destination, and it's eternity in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem. I don't know when that's coming.
Right.
It could be tomorrow.
Yeah.
It could be next month. It could be 20, 30, 40 years from now. And so I have to be really careful about how I think about my finish line in terms of navigating the journey of my life.
Right.
And so I like to think of true north more as a direction or a trajectory than a destination. For sure, I've got a destination, but I need to make sure that I'm navigating on course, and that I'm not tracking a target that's moving or that isn't what I really think it is.
Yeah. What's so interesting about the drift, not interesting, it's tragic, because it's something that we all naturally do. Like, because of our sinful fallen nature, we are prone to stray.
Yeah.
We're prone to drift. And if we're not recognizing that and we're not working against that, then to your point, little tweaks over time. And then to compound that, not only are we have this natural inclination to drift, but we have an enemy who's preying on that, who's trying to cause us to drift more and more and more. So if we're not aware of the fact that we even are drifting and we're not working against it, then there's a good chance that we could, at the end, it could lead to some devastating and destructive consequences.
Yeah. So the drift thing, you don't drift on purpose.
No.
And
or to better places.
Or to better places, and you don't drift a lot at a time. Like drift is subtle, and the little pieces that if we don't have things that help us understand whether we're tracking, then we're destined to be off course.
Yeah.
And we use that phrase all of the sudden, and
no,
and there's nothing sudden about it. It is subtle, it is slow, but it is dangerous.
Yeah. We talk about how I've never experienced a leader who woke up one morning and they're like, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to flush my life down the toilet.
No. Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight. And we have plenty of stories to tell to that end, and they're devastating and they're tragic.
It's unfortunate.
So we're naturally prone to drift, and we need to be proactive working against it. So talk to me about some ways that we can fight it, some ways we can overcome it. Is it even possible to overcome?
It's absolutely possible. It's you don't stay on course accidentally,
right?
And there's no set it and forget it. So like those are the two big ideas. I need to be intentional, on purpose, figuring out what's my real trajectory, what's my real direction, and then where am I prone to get off course. So there's one aspect of it that, hey, I know these things that may be easy for me, or vulnerabilities that I may fall into. But then there's also things that it's just, I've got to have my hand on the wheel, eyes on the road.
Right.
If I'm good, I've got to be watching. And so I need things. When I'm driving down the highway, I've got lines and I've got all kinds of things that help me stay on the road and get off on the right exit. If I don't do the same thing with my life, then it's just like I'm just driving in a direction and hoping I'm on course.
Yeah. We talk about, and we're gonna dive into this deeper, but just how we fight it is have better self-awareness. Right?
Yeah.
Because again, we live in Florida. And so there's times we'll go to the beach, and if the current is really strong, you can go in front of your house or your condo or whatever, and if you're not paying attention, you kind of look up.
Yep.
And you're a half mile, 2 miles down the beach. And what's so crazy about it is, like, it's not painful.
No.
Like, you don't feel the pain.
No.
And it's not hard to drift.
And if you watch the sand, it looks the same.
Yeah.
But you need other things to help you understand where you are in that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you wake up and realize, or look up and realize, I've drifted 2 miles, then you have to do the walk of shame.
Well, you have to hope you can see the house so you know which way to walk. There are some things, though, that can really be corruptors of our orientation, our understanding of our true north.
Yeah.
And this gets into some of that identity stuff.
So we know we have this tendency to drift, and we also know, like, we can fight it with growing in self-awareness or intentionality, having these anchor points. We know all of this, but what gets in the way of us actually putting that work in and fighting the drift? What's the disconnect between what we know and kind of what we do or how we apply it?
You said intentionality, and we intuitively know it, but we don't necessarily act on it. So there has to be some conviction. And conviction is certainly part Holy Spirit is going to give us some conviction. We've still got to respond to it. But you mentioned the two things. I think it's one of the traps is self-awareness. I'm not paying attention to this stuff well enough, so I don't have the input, the data to draw the right conclusions. And then the other is this misplaced identity. I think both of those things are big topics that kind of stand on their own.
Yeah.
But in terms of the disruptors to true north navigation, and it's going to be the awareness or the identity piece.
Yeah. It's a real thing, man. And we've experienced it. We've seen a lot of leaders experience it. And some of those leaders have been mentors of ours that we've talked about.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking about one of the leaders I'm really close to who kind of crashed and burned recently. And we were having this conversation at a coffee shop, just talking about kind of where he's at and what he's now having to deal with and the impact on him, the impact on his family, the impact on the church that he was at. And
Sure.
we kind of got in this conversation about and he said something like, I just don't know how I got here. And it was like, I do.
Yeah.
I know how we got here.
One step at a time.
It was one little step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It was little variations over a long period of time. It's not like, and that's how the enemy works, right? He doesn't come
Sure.
at us through the front door often and is like, hey,
Right.
I'm here to take you off course and lead you to destruction and devastation. It's taking those little things, those truths and making just a little bit off, taking good things, tilting them a little bit so that it lures us and lures us and lures us to the point where we get so far off course. We wake up one morning and we're like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And it's those little steps.
Yeah. Because if you rewind and you painted a picture of that years ago,
Yeah.
no way. Like that, I would never do that.
Yeah.
But when it's not that far, when you're talking about, it's just one more step, it's just one more step, then those almost happen accidentally.
Yeah.
But you've got to be intentional to stay on course.
Yeah. I guess the bad news is that we're naturally prone to drift. The good news is there's a way to fight it. And we're going to, in upcoming episodes, we're going to double click on some of those: identity, self-awareness.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to keep this conversation going.
Yes.
Thank you for hanging out with us once again.
Great to be here, man.
For those of you who are joining us, we invite you to join us again for future episodes as we double click on these things. We also encourage you to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube or whatever platform you're viewing this through. Also, we want to invite you to sign up for our free resource that we have that comes out each month. It's kind of like a check-in, like a Thrive check-in. It's a resource that we talk about that's focused on leader health and wellness. So that's free for you. You can go to our website at Thrive360.com. All words, no numbers, all words, Thrive360.com. That's it for today. Thanks again. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time on the Thrive360 Podcast. God bless.